Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
A magic beyond anything you could ever imagine.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Sagrera Farms on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Locking down the middle of the day.
You really think that's the best idea?
Live from the Raising Cane studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
It's quite a piece of work.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Raising Cane studio downtown in the capital city on this Thursday. That means we're brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Got Jordan Kitchens, Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos, working towards the weekend. Fired up you were here with us as we push off the dock on this Thursday. Our Thursday regulars will be here. Chris Blair in 15 minutes talking Tigers. Brian Kelly show tonight from TJ Ribs. So we'll talk to Chris Blair about that and what he saw in Nashville and what he hopes to see on Saturday night in Death Valley. Got to preview Saints and Bucks. It's a lot of injuries to talk about with Saints and Bucks. A lot of them on Tampa's side. We'll talk about that a little bit. We told you about Tony Vitello leaving Knoxville yesterday. There's more development in the SEC and a jarring press conference in Knoxville that we'll get to at 1:45. Travis Brown covers Texas A&M for the Bryan College Station Eagle. Well, actually, he's with the local TV station now. Just left us the Eagle, so we'll talk to him about the Aggies at 2:15. Luke Johnson at 2:30 talking Saints. So as you can see, plenty to do. Let's not wait any longer. Let's get it started the way we do every day with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
LSU and Texas A&M Saturday night in Death Valley. I write a piece every week for LouisianaSports.net about matchups, and oftentimes I lean towards the matchups that I feel favor one team significantly. Like in this case, like yesterday, I talked about LSU's offensive tackles against the really good Russians of Texas A&M, and I feel like that's one where you know who's got the advantage. It's a matter of how big is that advantage and how much can the team who's disadvantaged hold their own. And I think that's a big part of the game, and that's what I tend to lean to with these matchups. This matchup I'm about to lead off with today, I don't see a big advantage. I just see pros. I just see studs, and I just see an NFL draft scout's eyes locked on it. And I think it's going to be a really enjoyable portion of the game. And yes, I think the winner, whoever asserts himself in that spot, is going to be impactful in the game. But I expect it to be back and forth all night for 4 quarters on Saturday. That spot is LSU at corner and Texas A&M at wide receiver. Y'all know in this LSU market how well Mansour Delane has played. The consensus right now, there's a long way to go, it's October, but the consensus right now that I've seen from scouts on Twitter is that Mansour Delane is a first-round pick and may well be the top cornerback in college football this year. He hasn't been tested in about a month. He was tested a lot early. It did not go well for opponents. Ole Miss kind of said, we're not going to go that way, and you've seen teams follow suit. He's awesome. And then you look across from him, and you're seeing 2 guys really developing from the time they were high school players. P.J. Woodland got to LSU at 150 pounds, and he is now a year and a half into the program. He's still a little bit undersized, but he's tough. He's making plays on the ball. He made a play for an interception against Ole Miss. He's not afraid to get in there and tackle. He's played very, very well. And DJ Pickett is getting his sea legs as well. He's 6'5". He's a different body type than P.J. Woodland, and those guys have gotten a lot of targets. We detailed that last week. They have gotten the overwhelming majority of the targets, and they have played very well. LSU, from a defensive back perspective, from a pass defense perspective, has been very good. LSU's 5th best in the SEC in terms of 20-plus yard passes given up. LSU's 4th in the SEC in yards per attempt allowed, and 4th in the SEC in completion percentage allowed. It's certainly a strength for LSU. But the guys out wide for A&M are absolutely strengths as well. And they're portal guys that Mike Elko and Colin Klein identified, and they have been absolute hits. They went and got KC Concepcion from North Carolina State, one of the most sought-after wide receivers in the transfer portal. They went and got Mario Craver from Mississippi State. These guys have been stars. Craver leads the SEC in receiving yards. He leads the SEC in yards per catch. He got a huge bump from that at Notre Dame when he took one over 80 yards for a touchdown, but it was a heck of a play when he did it. He caught it running down the left sideline, made 2 guys miss in a broken tackle situation, and his speed on tape is absolutely something to see. He is a home run hitter whenever he gets his hands on the ball. Concepcion is plenty fast. but he's quicker than he is fast. He gets into creases. He makes guys miss in space. He is a really good punt returner for Texas A&M, and he's second in the SEC in touchdown catches with 6 of them. So you look at Concepcion, you look at Craver. Those are the main 2 guys that A&M is trying to get the ball to. And because of those 2 guys and their elusiveness, their big playability, A&M loves to hit those explosive plays. They're second in the Southeastern Conference in yards per attempt in terms of passing, and they're third in the SEC in 20-plus yard catches hitting those big plays, and that's something LSU's been very good against. So this is going to be very interesting to me because LSU, to me, has not seen elite wide receiver play since Clemson, and Clemson's best receiver went out in the first quarter of that game. They have 2 more that are very good, and LSU saw them the rest of the game, and LSU put the clamps on those guys, but I don't look at Florida having big-time weapons. South Carolina certainly does not have big-time weapons. Vanderbilt used their tight ends. They didn't use the running backs. And you look at Ole Miss, and they've got some guys that can play on the outside, but nobody like Trey Harris at this point. So this is the biggest test LSU will have seen from a wide receiver perspective, but this is the biggest test that A&M will have seen from a DB perspective. Notre Dame has some guys that can play, but the Irish haven't been as good on defense this year as they were last year. So what I'm curious in is because A&M does have a lot of confidence in Concepcion and Craver, it stands to reason one of those guys is going to be standing across from Mansour Delane on every snap. Do they challenge Mansour Delane because they feel like they have confidence? Does Delane have a chance to make a play? Or do they just go away from him, go to P.J. Woodland, go to DJ Pickett, use the other guy, and then lean on the running game? It's interesting. I mean, look, nobody is more confident than Lane Kiffin. Nobody. And Lane Kiffin, and I'm just going off what the broadcast told us during that game, Lane Kiffin decided in the middle of the week, C4 over there, we're not throwing over there. And it worked out fine for Ole Miss. They went up and down the field, had over 400 yards of offense, scored 24 points in that game, could have probably had closer to 30 were it not for a turnover near the end zone. So it's always fascinating how much your macho attitude matters, because I know a decent amount about Texas A&M's quarterback and these 2 wide receivers. I know a lot about LSU's DBs. I think the very sensible thing for Texas A&M to do would be to avoid Mansour Delane. I'm not throwing it over there and letting LSU potentially get a turnover or create an incompletion that gets you behind the chains. Like, I don't see a reason if I'm Texas A&M to go after the best guy. But there's something to that psychologically. I'll always remember this when breaking down football. I can't vouch for this story, but it did come out later on in interviews, so I'm going to go with it. I don't think it was made up years down the road. Nick Saban apparently brought in a sports psychologist before LSU and Alabama played in the national championship game in January of 2012. LSU had beaten Alabama in Tuscaloosa. LSU was undefeated, number 1 in the country. Alabama got a rematch in the Superdome. And one of the things that the sports psychologist said was, in conversing with Saban, like, if you can get after 7, which was Matthew, and make some plays on him, that will negatively impact LSU's psyche. If they see the guy who has been the dude get beat, they may not like that. And A.J. McCarron did throw at Tyrann Mathieu a lot early in that game. They put that game in A.J. McCarron's hands. They felt like, even though Trent Richardson was a star, running into Michael Brockers and Benny Logan and Sam Montgomery and Kevin Minner and Kiki Mingo and Lamine Barrow and that whole crew, running into that box was probably not wise. But she thought maybe they could win on the outside with Marquise Mays and those guys out at wide receiver. And they did. They threw it at Matthew a little bit. And so maybe there's something to the fact that if they can find some plays on Delane, you maybe bite off the head of the snake a little bit in that secondary. That's one way to think of it. I wouldn't think of it that way. I would throw at Woodland. I would throw at the freshman Pickett. But it's fascinating because those 2 guys are capable. But Delane is very capable. And so this is the biggest challenge for LSU's DBs thus far, biggest challenge for A&M's wide receivers thus far. And I think that makes it as fascinating a matchup as any on the field. Yesterday, I talked about A&M's rush-ins against LSU's tackles. I do think that there's an aspect of this that's really impactful with the crowd. The quarterbacks are going to have to play very well. Garrett Nussmeier specifically is going to have to be excellent for LSU in this game. Marcel Reed was great for Texas A&M in this game. A&M's going to lead on the running game. There's a real matchup of strengths with A&M's veteran offensive line against LSU's veteran defensive line. Like, there's a lot on the field that's worth talking about. None of it really shows the star power like this matchup. And so I think you'll see pretty early in this game how A&M plans to deal with it. If they can rotate the two receivers where they are, where Delane is, and determine where they want to go from that. But I think you'll see early and often how often Delane is targeted, because he just hasn't been. He's been targeted 4 times in the last 3 games. And teams are completing way under 50% against him. So if that holds, LSU can eliminate one of those receivers on a lot of plays. That's what you've got to hope for if you're LSU. For LSU to win this game, their best players are going to have to play really good. That's Delane. That's Nussmeier. That's some of those guys on the defensive front. That's Aaron Anderson. Like, your best plays are going to have to play really well to beat Texas A&M. Delane may be chief among those. We'll see how much Texas A&M decides they want to push that envelope and go at the guy who's playing the best football potentially in the country out at corner. That's our Genesis opening drive here on this Thursday. We're brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. It's an awesome time to load that freezer full of some of the best beef in the country. Top 1% nationwide. If you want to do that, you call my guy, Sean Sagrera. I give you his phone number every single week. That's how you get in touch with him. 719-1723. 719-1723. If you've seen those beef prices increasing, if you're uncomfortable with the beef you're purchasing because you have questions about where it was raised and where it came from and how it's been used and how it's been handled, you eliminate all of that when you go to Sagrera Farms, because Sean will show you where it came from. You're assured that when you take that beef home, you're getting one DNA, and it's going to be prime. They've got the scientific information. They've got the ultrasounds, and they can tell you what the intramuscular fat content is of that beef. You're looking at 9 being prime, cut off 8 or 9 for prime, 12, 15, 17, 19, in some cases double the standard of prime. It is some of the best beef you will have ever had. It's been the case at my house with the burgers we've cooked, the ribeyes, fillets, did an incredible roast as well. It's fine, and you can fill your freezer with it if you call our guy Sean at 719-1723. Sagrera Farms brings you our Thursday shows. We'll come back, talk to Chris Blair next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com is that website. Storm season's always around the corner, even if it's not. We know we're at the end of this one. There's always another one. And it could be the case that in December, January, February, you're renewing your commercial insurance program. If that's the case and you want a second set of eyeballs on that insurance program, contact Jonathan Carbo and the team at the Highland Insurance Group. They're awesome to work with. The way they handle things, they don't come in and say, hey, bet you I can save you 15%. They'd love to, and if they can, they certainly will. But what they'll do is make sure that for that good money that you're spending on your insurance, that your program's going to respond properly. Whether it's a storm, whether it's a car accident, whether it's a cyber attack or a lawsuit, workers' compensation injury, they'll make sure you are properly insured. It's the Highland Insurance Group. You can find them online at HighlandIG.com. They're here in Baton Rouge. They can help you out statewide. It's the Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Coach Brian Kelly show tonight, 7 o'clock from TJ Ribs, getting ready for LSU and Texas A&M, a Saturday night in Death Valley. Catch that on our sister station, Eagle 98.1, or the LSU Sports Radio Network affiliate in your area. Chris Blair, the voice of the Tigers, will be there. He's with us now on the Jim's Firearms hotline. Jim, that would be the jimsfirearms.net hotline. You would be Chris. How are you?
I'm good, man. I've been called a lot worse. Whatever you want.
What was the scene like in Nashville as far as that stadium on Saturday? It looked rather purple and gold on TV.
Yeah, it was kind of surprising. I mean, everybody I talked to in Nashville leading up to the game said, hey, I know you remember what it was like in 19. We expected to be a little bit different. That really wasn't the case. I mean, there probably were fewer LSU fans, if you will, in the end zones new to the new construction and obviously the home side. But that visiting side, at one point, and I counted, there's basically 6 sections of the old bowl across the way, and 5 of them were nothing but purple and gold. So the fans certainly were there. They took advantage of the destination trip to to Music City. But unfortunately, didn't make enough plays, didn't score enough touchdowns, had to settle for field goals. I'm sure you've talked about it all week long. So I know it was a disappointing trip as far as the game was concerned.
Yeah, certainly. Can you characterize Diego Pavia? You've now watched him twice in person. He's unlike most quarterbacks you see in the SEC.
Yeah, that was what I was most worried about. I mean, again, he didn't have a spectacular game a year ago. And again, you know, there's going to be games where he makes these incredible plays. I compared him, I don't know if I mentioned it to you, but I compared him at times to a much smaller, much slimmer Jared Lorenzen, in the sense that Jared didn't run around, but you never knew. He never gave up on the play, and you never knew what was going to happen. And to me, Pavia, and we'll see what, you know, Marcel Reed looks like on Saturday, but when you look at dual threat quarterbacks, especially in the SEC, Pavia to me has the biggest X factor. And we saw it on display. You know, there were times where it looked like we were in a position to bring him down for a loss. Obviously, we got home once on that 4th down and 1. That was kind of a head scratcher as far as what they were trying to do offensively. But, you know, unlike Lenore Sellers, unlike Cade Klubnik, when you put those guys in dual threat quarterback, I mean, Pavia is looking to make a play. And he will dance, spin, run around, go side to side, sideline to sideline, and not necessarily looking to run. Of course, he was successful with the middle of the field wide open on a couple of occasions. But I think that's what is impressive about him, is that he can buy the time, spin away from pressure, multiple pressures, and still be able to find a really good pair of tight ends who were just an Achilles heel most of the afternoon.
Certainly were. So now you turn your attention to Marcel Reed and this Texas A&M offense. How do you feel LSU will handle Reed the second time around, because it didn't feel like they were quite ready last year when he was inserted into the game in College Station?
Yeah, I don't think there'll be that kind of surprise or switch gear factor that we clearly saw that LSU was unable to ever get right back on their feet in that game last year. But, you know, I think this is an underrated Texas A&M offense. And I know that may sound weird in the sense that, well, they just came off a 45-point performance. But I'm talking about individual numbers. I mean, when you look at Marcel Reed, just in SEC games, and again, they haven't played their toughest SEC games yet. I understand that. But in 4 SEC games, I mean, his numbers are in the top half in virtually every key statistic for a quarterback, from completion percentage to yards per completion, to his balance of rushing touchdowns to passing touchdowns, and his limited throwing of interceptions. And again, you just don't hear Marcel Reed's name when you listen to the national talking heads the way you have many other quarterbacks. And the fact that I think they've got a tandem of wide receivers who are certainly unsung in what they've been able to do so far, including Concepcion. I mean, those guys are averaging 11, 12, 13 yards per catch. And again, the calling card for Texas A&M has always been, or at least under Mike Elko these 2 seasons, has been the ability to run the football. Well, they got that too, both with Marcel Reed and Reuben Owens, who's kind of taken over for Le'Veon Moss, who I swear to goodness he had to be on that team with Johnny Manziel. I mean, he has been at Texas A&M forever, but he's out and not expected to play. But Owens has done a very good job. So I look at this offense, and again, maybe it's because it's not as flashy. Maybe it's because they don't make the SportsCenter top 10 every weekend with these crazy plays. But when you look at the numbers, there's not a whole lot of weaknesses in their offensive game. I mean, you look at the win over Auburn, their offense wasn't clicking, and their defense carried the day for a 16-10 win. Then you get in a shootout where they basically answered Arkansas score for score outside of one. I think it was either 5 or 6 or 6 of 7. They answered scores and outscored Arkansas 45-42. So they found a way to win games just about every way possible, at least through the first 7-8 weeks of the season.
Yeah, it's been impressive to watch them be as versatile as they have been. I'm curious what you think about A&M's run game against LSU's run defense. The numbers look bad against Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt hit a couple plays late in that game. But I felt like watching it, LSU did a good job against the traditional run, handing off to the running backs. Pavia got loose a little bit, but then they may have worn down a little bit late. Like, how do you feel LSU's run defense will match up, especially if they can get Bernard Gooden back?
Yeah, I mean, I think 3/4 of the game, you're pretty accurate. I mean, from the traditional running back standpoint, I thought LSU did a good job. In fact, in the first half, I was impressed when we went to halftime that, again, outside of Pavia scrambling and doing what he does, I mean, just to hand the football off, they were pretty locked in on not allowing a lot of yards on the ground. When I look at this A&M team, the biggest concern I have is the Maroon Goons, as they're affectionately known there at College Station. I mean, this is a hulking offensive line. They don't give up a lot of sacks. They don't give up a lot of tackles for loss. To me, that's where the challenge is going to come, whether it's Reed or Owens or any other running back. Are they going to be able to disrupt things with an offensive line that I think averages 317 across the front? These are some big guys, and they've been very effective, and they've got hundreds of snaps in FBS football. So it's a veteran group, it's a big group, and it's a physical group. To me, that run game defense is going to be the biggest concern. And then obviously you're without, hopefully you get Gooden back. Hopefully by some miracle, Weeks is able to go. But if he's not, I mean, you're talking about two important pieces that have been very good and have helped this defense overall do well against running attacks. And then I go back to the second half of the LSU game. There just looked like at times not only were you missing Whit Weeks from his talent standpoint, but you were missing him from a leadership standpoint. The green dot, getting everybody set, making sure the fits are right pre-snap. There looked to be, I won't say confusion because I know a lot of people immediately go back to the last 2 years. I'm not talking about that. But there were times where it looked like we weren't quite at the right point pre-snap, which took off our angles, which allowed them to get some of those big plays that ultimately cost LSU the game.
Voice of the Tigers, Chris Blair, is with us talking LSU football. Offensively, they have moved the ball for the last two games. There's no doubt. Red zone struggles, as you mentioned at the top. But are you taking any sort of positive that hey, they're moving it down the field?
Well, at this point, you got to be able to put both of those things together.
Yeah.
And it's week 8 of the season. So, is there a chance? I mean, do you lose all hope in the sense that we haven't seen it a lot this year against really good opponents to be able to run up and down the field, move the chains, sustain drives, or again, you can't score inside the 20, whether it's the red zone, the white zone, or the blue zone. Does that mean that can happen at one given night? No, absolutely. We've seen samples of both. But the key is you got to put both of those together. The third down efficiency. I mean, this is an A&M team, by the way. I had to go to 3 sources to make sure there wasn't a misprint. 14% conversion rate in the SEC for their opponents on third down.
Yeah.
That's impressive. And they're second in the country along with being first in the SEC. And when I say first, number 2 is way down the line as far as percentage is concerned. So, the challenge is going to be to put those long drives together. But ultimately, you got to put it in the end zone. I mean, Damian Ramos, he's 5 points shy of setting the all-time scoring record for a kicker at LSU. But he needs to get 5 of those by point afters on Saturday.
I would tend to agree with that. How do you expect LSU emotionally to play on Saturday? It's a weird spot that I don't think anybody expected them to be in once you had started off 4-0.
Well, I think there's a lot of a lot of stock in the fact that following losses under Coach Brian Kelly, LSU is 6-1 when returning to Tiger Stadium. They're 19-1 under Coach Kelly at night at Tiger Stadium. I think you got to lean into all of that. I think you got to talk about that. I believe you got to talk about what that means, and that's a pride standpoint, and that's for the 3 letters on the front and for the letters on the back. No matter what your job is, offense or defense, special teams, you got to lean into that. You got to lean into the fact that, the home crowd and riding the wave of that emotion and momentum has given these teams, over the last 8 meetings, the home team gets the win. I think all of that stuff has to be on the table, either, verbally or certainly in the top of their minds, because there's nothing they can do about last Saturday. There's nothing they can do against the inability to get off the field on third down and stay on the field on third down in Oxford against Ole Miss. That's ancient history as far as we're concerned. It comes down to taking on Texas A&M, and there's a lot of things that are in your favor, not the biggest of which playing at home with a 6:49 kickoff at Tiger Stadium. Take advantage of all of that. That's the emotion you need to fall towards.
We'll see. It's going to be a charged environment in there on Saturday for sure. Before I let you go, just one thought. The SEC baseball landscape changed a little bit yesterday with Tony Vitello leaving Tennessee and Kevin O'Sullivan stepping away for a time from Florida. How surprised were you to see all that?
Yeah, I was pretty surprised. I mean, obviously last week we got word that there were conversations and, that Tony V may be wanting to scratch that itch of Major League Baseball. I'd take away from it a little bigger is I was shocked, again, after it was reported and then we go 4 or 5 days and it's not official and then suddenly it is. I thought that was a great window for Tennessee to be able to keep that momentum that he's been able to build there. For whatever reason, it wasn't, I don't know if it's because he just wants to go to the major league, see how he does, or it was just he wasn't getting what he wanted in Knoxville. And then the Florida situation, I mean, you know how important fall ball is. I mean, you hear Jay Johnson talk about it every year. Like when you start the season in February, there are some things that he still has in his mind that he watched and observed in fall ball. Suddenly you have, Sully not there for whatever extended period of time. It'll be interesting to see, how that affects if he comes back, when he comes back, how that sets them back a couple of weeks to start the season. So, it certainly was not what I was expecting to see, especially both of those announcements coming out in one day. But, hey, SEC baseball just means more, right?
It certainly does. 2 national championship coaches stepping away, one permanently, one for the time being. Chris, we appreciate it. We'll be listening tonight, 7 o'clock from TJ Ribs.
You got it. See you Saturday.
Voice of the Tigers, Chris Blair will be on the call with Jacob Hester and Gordy Rush, LSU and Texas A&M on Saturday night. We've still got more to talk about LSU and Texas A&M, including a stat that I did not like reading today, but I'll get to it at the top of hour number 2. When we come back, lengthy injury report for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Talk about how that impacts the game coming up on Sunday afternoon in the Dome. That's next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Swing Easy Golf Club in Baton Rouge. SwingEasyGCBR.com. Great place to hang out, to enjoy some friends, to hit some golf shots, enjoy a cold beer or 3, maybe a seltzer, glass of wine, comfortable seating, TV on the wall. Play Pebble Beach. You can play TPC Sawgrass. Compete with your friends trying to hit that island green. Play Bethpage Black where they had the Ryder Cup. Got a big golf tournament every April in Georgia. You can play that golf course as well. It's just a great time. I've been by multiple times. Just go play. I find the simulator is incredibly accurate. When I feel like I've snap hooked one, it shows. When I feel like I've nuked one, it shows. I feel like I've hit it right at the stick. It shows as well. And you get mulligans if you want one too. It's the beauty of the indoor simulator. Don't have to worry about the rain, which we're going to get this weekend. Don't have to worry about it being too hot, which you don't have to worry about right now. Don't have to worry about it being too cold, which you will have to worry about here shortly. Control the elements and enjoy some time at Swing Easy Golf Club there on Segan at Perkins. Get on by any skill level, any amount of friends. Just get on by, rent a bay, and have some fun socializing with a drink or 2. It's Swing Easy Golf Club in Baton Rouge. Check them out online at swingeasygcbr.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
All right, we got Sports Center on one of the TVs in studio here. Jordan, if you had to pick one, they just showed 2 of the things they've done at these campus stops that they make. One was bobbing for beignets, where you had people like hands behind their back going down to get beignets. I couldn't really tell what
water?
They were getting. They were not in water, but I'm not sure what they were going into there. Or a hot wing competition. Which would you rather compete in?
I do. Look, hot foods don't agree with my stomach.
I don't
at
like
all.
hot food either, but like sucking up powdered sugar does not sound great either. Like in your nostrils, and that sounds bad.
I'll take the sugar rush before I take that what's gonna feel like on that toilet 30 minutes later. So I'll take that sugar rush before I take the hot wings because I didn't.
All right.
Tear me up, man.
Didn't know where we were going with that, but that's where we ended up. Neither one of those sounds super awesome to me. I love wings and I love beignets. I don't love bobbing for beignets, nor do I love fiery wings. So I'll pass on both. But that's what they got college kids for, to make poor decisions, because college kids are very, very good at that. So with that said, let's talk pro. Saints and Bucks, late slot on Sunday afternoon in the Superdome. The story right now in the middle of the week is the injury report. The Bucks, let me count this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 guys mentioned on the injury report, and the majority of those did not participate. Teddy Bridgewater's got something wrong with his teeth. Levante Davis got a knee and a rib. Emeka Ibuka got a hamstring. Greg Gaines toe. Chris Godwin fibula. I mean, there's significant names on this list. When I look at it, I think specifically the Buccaneers offense is infected the most. Mike Evans is not going to play in this game. He is out. Chris Godwin is not going to play in this game. He is out. That means your top two receivers out for Tampa in this game. And then Bucky Irving, who is a really talented back, also not going to play in this game. So, Baker is playing with a compromised skill group, and then he's got issues on the right side of his offensive line. Luke Haggard's got a shoulder injury. He didn't practice. It's not good for Tampa in terms of their personnel. Baker's been able to lean on Mike Evans for his entire time there in Tampa. Godwin's been an awesome resource as well. And without those guys on the outside, you kind of change the numbers. Ibuka's really good. He's been awesome as a rookie, but he's not those two guys in terms of skins on the wall as a pro. That's a big deal. You go to the Buck defense, and not having Hassan Reddick, who we don't believe is going to play in this game, would be a huge deal. And then you flip things over to the Saints side if we're talking about key injuries. And this is where I get to kind of a key to this game, because the Bucs will try to figure things out at receiver, and they've got Ibuka, who's played pretty well, and Reddick they haven't had the last couple of weeks. And so you look at it, and they've got some more clarity in what they're trying to do. As far as Eric McCoy missing this game and missing the rest of the year, there was a question as who was going to be the center here. You're going to go with Cesar Ruiz and bump him down inside to center? You're going to put Torricelli Simpkins, an undrafted free agent rookie, in there? Or do you go to Luke Fortner, who you made a trade for earlier this season in training camp? And Fortner is the answer, and it's probably the obvious answer, but it is the answer they went with. Fortner played center in his first year there in Jacksonville. He's played guard the majority of the last 3 seasons. So he's not as experienced as used to playing the center spot as he once was. But he's going to play there, and he hadn't played there in 2 years. And all of a sudden, you get there to the Dome, you're playing a new position, and who's across the line of scrimmage from you? Vita Vea. Vita Vea is not a lot of fun for anybody, especially not someone who hasn't played center in 2 years. He's a 2-time Pro Bowler. He's 350 pounds, and he is one of the best interior pass rushers in the National Football League still at the age of 30. And that's something that the Saints have to handle on the interior, because we know entering the season and week to week, you're looking out at your tackles and you're going, okay, we've got a rookie first-round pick at left tackle. We've got a second-year player first-round pick at right tackle. The edges might be a bit of an issue week to week because you're young there, but at least we've got the middle anchored because you've got veterans in there. You've got Eric McCoy at center. You've got Ruiz at right guard. You've got Penning in there at left guard. You've traded for Fortner. The interior is at least something you can count on while you're trying to help on the outside of the offensive line. And now the very middle of that offensive line is a soft spot. And if Vita Vea is able to win consistently on the interior and get Spencer Rattler off his spot, and then you've got these tackles out on an island with the quarterback who's trying to move around, that could just be a disaster for New Orleans. So what has to be paramount for this offense entering this game is handling your injury to Eric McCoy at center. I think the Saints defense is in a better spot than we thought because of all those injuries to the Bucs on the offensive side of the football. The Saints offense, that injury is a bigger deal, I think. So that is key number one for me in this game. Now we move back to the Bucs and their injuries and what that's going to mean for Baker Mayfield, who had a heck of a time trying to get things going against Detroit. And that's a better Detroit group defensively, personnel-wise, than the Saints by a pretty long shot. But if the Saints can get Chase Young back, and he was on the injury report on Wednesday, and we'll see how that moves forward Thursday, Friday. But if they can get Chase Young back, who's clearly their best pass rusher, and they can get Carl Granderson back in the backfield, and they can get some pressure on Mayfield with a lack of weapons on the outside, I like the Saints defensively in this game. It's a lot to ask, but it's not hard to map out. If you can make that happen, I think you're going to be okay. I looked at this game 3 weeks ago, and I said, Saints are cooked. And like, spoiler alert, on tomorrow's show, I'm going to pick the Bucs to win. Like, I'll be upfront about that. But this doesn't look like the mismatch it did 3 weeks ago. Saints got crushed in Seattle. Were 0-4, about to play the Giants. Like, the Bucs had played really well to start the season, had scored some really nice wins, gone on the road, and you felt like, well, Baker's playing at a top 5 or 6 level in the NFL right now. Like, that's a no-shot game. I don't feel that way anymore. And that I don't mean that as some sort of trying to soften things for the Saints late in the week, just a false sense of optimism. I mean, I think the Saints can play Tampa pretty close because this is not Tampa's full roster. They're missing lead back, top 2 wide receivers, best edge rusher, Reddick. They got crushed last week in Detroit. Like, it's just not the same team. And we've lived this story for 3 years with the Saints. The Saints, I think, had a functional, some might even say playoff roster 2 years ago, but they just got wiped out by injuries. And I don't think the Saints were necessarily a playoff team last year, but the first 2 weeks were really good, and then everybody got hurt. And right now, the Bucs are going to get some of these guys back, but they're really hurt. And the Saints need to make that hurt on Sunday. And I think that there are some matchups that probably would have tilted away from New Orleans that you might feel a little bit better about now, like the young pass defenders for the Saints against Godwin and Evans and Ibuka as a 3, as opposed to now Ibuka becoming the 1. That's just not the same. That matchup's just not the same. So to me, I hate when it falls this way, and it's not something we've talked about a lot this year in Saints games, but the injury report becomes massive in the NFL this time of year. It's massive every week. And the Bucs are as hurt a team as there is in the National Football League. So maybe the Saints can take a little bit of advantage of that in the game coming up on Sunday in the Dome. 3:05 kickoff from New Orleans. All right, that's a look at the Saints and Bucs here on this Thursday. We'll talk to Luke Johnson in 45 minutes. He'll have been at practice today and be able to give us a little bit more indication of how things are trending with the New Orleans Saints. If you look at their injury report, you're looking at a couple guys that you'd really like to get back in Chase Young, who was sick. You got a personal matter for Alontae Taylor, like to get him back, and then Kamara and Juwan Johnson, kind of limited there. We'll see what they get to be here moving forward on this game week with the Saints and the Bucs. Bucs have a bye week next week, so probably not in a huge hurry to get guys to the field if they're a little bit compromised. So our Thursday show is brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef, some of the finest beef in America, just outside Baton Rouge, and it's ready to fill your freezer. Fillets, ribeyes, flanks, chucks, strips, the whole deal, including ground beef. They can get you loaded up over at Sagrera Farms with prime USDA Angus beef. All right, let's take a time out. When we come back, I don't mean to rehash this story because we talked about it yesterday with Tony Vitello leaving Tennessee. But there's more to this story from a Knoxville perspective that's relevant to every elite college baseball program. And there's obviously news out of Gainesville with Kevin O'Sullivan stepping away. I'll tell you what I think about that. We'll do it to close out hour number 1 coming back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is the website. Every car that's on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. You will notice immediately when you start working with the good folks of Genesis of Baton Rouge how great their customer service is. There is a stigma out there. There is a stereotype out there of car salespeople being pushy and upselling and taking advantage, being aggressive. You're never going to get that at Genesis of Baton Rouge. This is not how they operate. They're there to help. They're going to treat you as a guest, not a potential customer. So go by and see them. Say, hey, I'd like to get behind the wheel. Tell me what you got and what might work for me. Here's my situation. And they are happy to help you. I prefer the GV80. I think it's awesome. It's a midsize SUV. Fits my family style. If you're in a situation with 2 young kids like me, can fit the car seats, comfortable, got all the bells you whistles you want, and IIHS top safety pick. Means it's one of the safest cars on the road. Go by and see him at Genesis of Baton Rouge. Interact with that sales team. See the difference. It's a luxury brand at a reasonable price. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge. Airline at PQ or online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
So yesterday I went into my thoughts on Tony Vitello's departure from Tennessee, kind of what that means for the landscape of SEC baseball, and certainly here at LSU, where you had two guys, in my opinion, that were at the top of the sport, Vitello and Johnson. Jay Johnson's still here in Baton Rouge. Tony Vitello is gone. I just don't see Tim Corbin in that category right now. I don't see Kevin O'Sullivan in that category right now. I don't see Jim Schlossnagle in that category right now. I think that Jay Johnson and Tony Vitello had established themselves at the top of the sport. Dave Van Horn right there, and I realize that Corbin has multiple national championships and O'Sullivan has one as well, and Dave Van Horn does not. But Dave Van Horn's teams are better year in and year out the last 4 years than O'Sullivan and Corbin's are. And that includes my understanding that Vanderbilt was the number one seed this past year. But I talked about all that yesterday. I want to go further into the story because there's a little bit of a development. Danny White, Tennessee's athletic director, had a press conference yesterday. And there is speculation, and it is just that from the best I know. I certainly have no source on this matter. Speculation in Knoxville that Tony Vitello was a little bit unhappy with some of the allocation of the revenue sharing. And it's interesting because the House settlement, what the House declared the NCAA needed to pay back to players in NIL money was 75% of the mass of the money to football, 15% to men's basketball, that's 90% total, 5% to women's basketball, and 5% to everything else. So, many schools, Tennessee included, because Danny White laid this out explicitly yesterday, and LSU, where Scott Woodward laid this out, are doing that exact same thing with their revenue sharing of $20.1 million. 75% goes to football, 15% goes to men's basketball, 5% goes to women's basketball, and 5% goes to everything else. And there is speculation in Knoxville that Tony Vitello was unhappy with that. Now, Danny White came out and said, because that's like about that 5% that women's basketball get is about $900,000. And so that 5% that everybody else gets, they've got to split about $900,000. And so Danny White said yesterday that Tennessee baseball got $700,000 in revenue sharing. He said that. Now, I don't know what exactly LSU is doing with its 5% earmark to other. I don't know. But this is something that athletic directors are going to have to deal with. And it becomes an internal tug-of-war between programs. And I can tell you this. Mississippi State's baseball program is getting more than a portion of 5%. Coastal Carolina is way out of line with 75% going to football and a portion of 5% going to baseball because they know what they can compete in. Mississippi State knows that if it sinks what everybody else is sinking in revenue sharing into football, they're going to struggle to keep up with everybody in the SEC. But if they divert some of it to baseball with that Taj Mahal Stadium and a new coach, they can field a really good roster. And it's an interesting thing that Danny White, this is not like reporting that somebody, Danny White said it at the microphone, that this is what they did. And some of the reporters in Knoxville think that Tony Vitello was not happy about that. And it'll be fascinating as we learn what schools prioritize and where they spend that money in the revenue sharing portion. This is separate from NIL. If players can get third-party NIL deals, go do it. You can do it. Want to make an Instagram post for that? Do it. Want to do a radio commercial for that? Do it. Want to do hitting lessons? Do it. Want to do an Instagram post for that clothing line? Do it. That's not included in this. This is purely the revenue share. And athletic directors have to determine what they're going to share. And the thought is that maybe Tony Vitello did not like that revenue share. Now, Danny White pushed back against it, and Tony Vitello has not confirmed that. But it was an interesting scuttlebutt up there in Knoxville when that went on yesterday. As far as Kevin O'Sullivan goes, startling news yesterday to see that he's stepping away. I was done with my show when that broke. I am certainly not here to speculate on why Kevin O'Sullivan is stepping away. There is reporting yesterday that suggests it is not a personal health issue. So it's not as though he's sick. And beyond that, I'm not going to speculate. But for it to be significant enough that Florida is announcing he will step away and for them to go through with their fall baseball without their head coach, who's kind of a legend there, it's noteworthy. And we'll see if Kevin O'Sullivan comes back and coaches this spring. That's certainly what you would infer from a temporary leave of absence, but you just never know. And it does start to to shape the conversation of the SEC's baseball landscape. Because while I think that Tony Vitello and Jay Johnson ruled that roost, and I think that Dave Van Horn's right behind them, certainly Tim Corbin, Kevin O'Sullivan, legends right there. You got Wes Johnson, who is winning a lot of games at Georgia. You got Mike Bianco, who's an institution where he is. Jim Schlossnagle had a really nice first year at Texas. Like, you've got star power in the Southeastern Conference, but unquestionably yesterday that star power took a hit, and just all quiet here in Baton Rouge, other than the team going to visit the White House, going to the governor's house for dinner. Been pretty quiet in Baton Rouge. So those Tigers will scrimmage at 4:30 today. If you'd like to go see those guys play a little bit, you can go to the box at 4:30 today. But it's been a huge day in Southeastern Conference as far as two of the iconic names in the sport stepping away from their program, one permanently, one indefinitely. All right, if you missed any of hour number one, catch it on demand wherever you find your sound. Just search Hunt Palmer Show. If you're looking for your LSU content, Hunt on LSU. Looking for your Saints content, Hunt on Saints. We had both in our first hour. I talked about biggest matchup I see on the field on Saturday, which is between LSU's talented secondary and A&M's talented wide receivers. Kind of gave you my thoughts on that. Chris Blair was with us a little bit earlier as well. We're going to pause for national headlines and Sports Center. There's a pretty big deal going on in the NBA that I'm sure they'll update you on. When we come back, we'll talk some LSU, Texas A&M. I'll give you my thoughts on a big key to this game to me. Travis Brown, who covers the Texas A&M Aggies for a local TV over in College Station, with us in 20 minutes. So don't go anywhere. Hope your Thursday's going well. Brought to you by Sagrera Farms on this Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. When I say redesigning, remodeling, you probably think dollar signs. You probably think invasive. You probably think time intensive. It doesn't have to be. It can be something simple, like a tub to shower conversion. If you've got a tub, maybe a big jacuzzi, maybe an older home with a dingy tub that's not quite as functional as it once was, don't just call the local guy down the street and slip him some cash to try to fix it for the short term. Get the experts. Get the company that's done this for 3 decades. Get the guy that is licensed, bonded, insured, that has a master plumber on site. And they can do a tub to shower conversion. This is something that can be done in 3 to 5 days. Get that tub out, put a brand new walk-in shower, turn the aesthetic, turn the entire functionality of that bathroom upside down. It can be very, very cost-effective and short-term. It's One Bath and Closets. Find everything online at onebathandclosets.com.